What is up, designers? I'm always asked this question by designers who are just starting out. Do I pick a specific vertical and become a specialist, or do I spread myself out and learn a little bit of everything and become a generalist? Today, we're going to talk about it. My name is Mubarak Marafa, and on this channel, I make videos about product design and the industry as a whole. If that sounds like something interesting to you, why don't you hit that subscribe button and stick around? All right, product design. For better or for worse, our discipline is massive. It covers pretty much everything with regards to product. I've run workshops where we discuss business strategy and viability of a given idea. I've run research sprints where we employ qualitative and quantitative research techniques to learn about key stakeholders and users. This actually happens, by the way, later as well while designing the UI, just to validate designs. I've also assumed the role of a UI designer and created scalable visual design systems that adhere to UX and UI principles, all while designing the overall product. I also work with developers to build the actual product using agile methodologies. So just there, I've talked about business strategy, research, visual design, and agile methodology, but the list goes on. There's so much more. You could also learn about code and jump into front end. You also need to think about the back end and the architecture of the data of the product. You could be focused on motion design or sound design. The list just keeps going on and on and on. This causes a lot of designers who are just starting out to feel, understandably, a little bit lost. You see all these designers out there, and they all seem to have entirely different skill sets. Some seem to specialize on like a few key areas, and some seem to be comfortable across several. So what do? Do you specialize, or do you generalize? Or maybe a bit of both? If you are a specialist, then that means that you're an expert in one thing. You went deep in one vertical and you're not that great at other things. This is great if you're in a large team and your company can actually afford to hire multiple UX professionals for different things. You might have someone dedicated to research, someone dedicated to UI and visual design. Maybe you have someone that's a UX copywriter, and maybe you have someone dedicated to prototyping. These are all potential specialties that you can focus on. The pros of doing this, however, are that you gain a really deep knowledge about a specific vertical, let's say visual design, right? You get to really focus on what you're doing. You're not really that concerned with what comes before you and what comes after. You just do your thing and you do it really well. The next pro is that you get to have teammates that cover all bases. You get to mix and match different teams, and you get to work with people across different disciplines. Now, with this comes a lot of cons as well. You end up not really being that adaptable to different kind of environments. This leads to compartmentalization, so you really just are in a silo and you're doing your own thing. And this can cause like tunnel vision, right? So you can imagine like a visual designer that's not too concerned about data and architecture and like the business viability of everything. On the flip side, being a generalist is great if your goal is to work within a smaller team, like say a startup, or perhaps you're a consultant. Basically, if UX is new to the company, then you're probably going to have to be a generalist and just wear all of those hats. Startups are a great example, but this also applies to new teams within larger organizations. Within consulting, a lot of times when you work with clients, you're expected to be an expert across multiple verticals. Some of the pros of being a generalist means that you are very adaptable. You can be dropped in at any given moment during a project and be able to hit the ground running. This also makes you really marketable to companies, because a lot of companies actually look for someone who is comfortable in several different verticals, several different roles. So being a generalist also gives you the opportunity to have a lot of ownership for the product that you're designing. This is mainly due to the fact that you are pretty much at every seat at the table. So you'd be at meetings for business, you'd be at tech meetings, you'd be at design meetings. So you really get to follow the product along from conception to eventual development and delivery. This, however, leaves you a lot of the times just having just enough knowledge, right? So you usually end up hitting the bounds of your knowledge with regards to a certain discipline or a vertical. Also, being a generalist means you have to switch a lot of context, so you can go from being deep into research to then communicating with developers on the front end. Also, you end up a lot of the times being a UX team of one. This is a massive topic. Let me know if you want to see a video on being a UX team of one. In reality, you're probably going to want to be a bit of both across your career. When you're starting out, your skill set will probably look like sort of a flat line. And this is good because you're trying out everything and you're seeing what you're best suited for. Then as you progress in your career, you might find one or two areas that you're drawn to. So naturally, you'll become more of a T-shaped designer. Now, you can stop here and just focus on one area and become a specialist. But there's a concept called the broken comb designer, which I believe was first coined by Jared Spool. This is where I believe that you should want to be. While you're perfecting your skills within a vertical, stay open to learning other things in other verticals. I believe that as a product designer, this is where you should strive to be. It really allows you flexibility to focus on one thing while still being able to do other things if you need to. So my answer to whether or not you should be a generalist or a specialist is to actually be a little bit of both. It's a bit of a non-answer, I know, but I genuinely believe that the goal is to be that broken comb. But in order to get there, be T-shaped first and then build out your other skills across time. I personally am more of a generalist myself. I jump around between a lot of different verticals, but I actually want to hear about you. Leave a comment telling me below whether you are a generalist or a specialist, and we'll get to talking in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.